Okay, so now we are back with our second, uh, I guess, episode of going through uh, AI, the Somnium Files Nirvana Initiative. Last time we synced with Ryuki, I think that's how you pronounce his name, uh, and he was freaking out, and the thing was crumbling around him. Um, and and so now we start the part of the game where we play as him.
Mhm, mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, and he's investigating the appearance and then spontaneous combustion of half of the body. So that's kind of his main purpose right now. We're presumably going to figure out what it is that's causing him so many traumatic freakouts down the line. We haven't got there quite yet.
no,
Uh,
but we sure will. Um, so it's been a while since I've actually played this portion of the game, so I don't want to necessarily say anything that might be a spoiler in case someone is listening to this going forward. Um, and I know you played it more recently,
mhm.
so how's the investigation going?
There's a lot of kind of loose ends right now. So we're introduced to several new characters as we're driving around town, sort of checking in on everybody who was there when the body
Yes.
shows up,
Unfortunately,
right?
the
So we
driving
see,
is back. I know that you were
oh
happy
my gosh,
before that the 6 years was just
this
like a jump, and as soon as the driving started happening, I was like, "Oh, Wes is not going to be happy."
it's kind of weird. Well, that's sort of odd because that's where we find out the most about Ryuki, I feel like, is the fact that he has this self-driving car that's like a limo, and it's like the one thing he inherited from his parents or something who have gone, disappeared, died. I don't know. Anyway, so we get like a little glimpse into his backstory there. But he's not real introspective. Mostly he's just kind of, yeah, following up on all these people. So we've got, gosh, the high school girls,
Hmm.
and there's one new person there who's like part of the dance team. And then it turns out there's yet another dance team member hanging out with Mizuki down at Ota's restaurant,
Hmm.
and she dances a little dance, and it like causes this mysterious person who's drunk but maybe not actually drunk to fall in love and propose marriage on the spot.
Hmm.
And he seems pretty weird. So there's three or four new characters introduced there. There's the Yakuza guys, and one of them is apparently the director of the quiz show that we were on. So it turns out that he actually like is trying to get out of that lifestyle because he's got a um, girlfriend who's pregnant, and she also is one of the dance team members, possibly, or one of their
Hmm.
coworkers at the maid cafe, the Mermaid Cafe.
Who
Um,
knows?
yeah, so there's just a lot of kind of weird little loose ends there. We hang out with the game show host up on a rooftop amusement park. So there's that amusement park thing again. He seems to have some weird relationship with his son. His son won't really talk much, but it's like really into making robots. like,
Yeah.
and yeah, so
S-
that's I think about as many new people that we meet. And then there's the two Somnia, um, one with one mad scientist type guy called Shikara, and then another with a scary lady called Tokiko, who runs a shadowy organization. I think that's just about everything investigation wise. Everything is pretty wide open at this point.
Okay, so we have
Um,
have we have not gone to the body.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, so the body is a VR simulation,
Yes,
right?
so that's a
Yeah,
new
so
like
yeah,
mechanic that is introduced in this game.
totally blends, right? Like elements of the investigations with elements of the Somnium.
Hmm.
So you like actually walk around and see stuff. But yeah, but it is all just a simulation. Um, and we get a couple of these. They happen when you're like hanging out at a park. It's like a quiet place, and then Tama, the AI companion, creates these VR things. So yeah, so you do a bit of investigating about the body, find out how it 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 explodes because there's some canisters inside of it connected to a carbon fiber string
Yes.
that's why the lights turned off. So it seems like really stretching
Well,
um, belief. Yeah.
well, yes,
Just
there is a logical explanation for everything,
yeah.
regardless of how
And
outlandish it is. It is not a candidate for the very scary almanac. The
turns out,
Yeah,
yeah.
the sign was put in there so that the body would fall the right way. The body was placed in the rafters so that it would fall, or rigor mortis or
Hmm.
whatever. It it would fall after a certain amount of time. So all of these supernatural um, things have logical explanations, regardless of how
Hmm.
like stretched the believability is, right?
Hmm.
Um, I guess
Exactly.
I don't understand how the like organs aren't falling out. The body's
That
just like,
part is not explained. Yeah.
I mean, I guess
The,
everything's been cut at the molecular level. So, um, yeah. And I forget, does at a certain point Ryuki goes to a bar and he gets shot at? Did that happen yet?
that's right. Yeah, that's when you're following up on the lead about the director.
Right.
Um, we trace his cell phone or something, like we know that he's at the Mermaid Cafe, Sunfish Pocket, and yeah. So then there's another bullet time event, which is a little silly. Again, just like you're like dodging bullets as you run towards him. Um, it really comes to nothing. That like there's very little comes out of that other than discovering another half body at the high school. Um, yeah, it's weird. It's a
Yeah.
weird
So
little event.
I don't remember if bullet dodging like this happened in the first game with Date. Um, I will
I don't
say
think
get
that was one of his skills. No.
I will say it was. You mentioned bullet dodgers, and aside from Boris from Snatch, the bullet dodger, you think
Yeah.
of Neo, which
Oh
from
yeah.
the Matrix,
Absolutely.
which further on I think is going to be relevant. I mean, I think it's probably intentional that he's dodging bullets,
Hmm.
given
Interesting.
these two organizations that we're introduced to shortly. Um, I'm just trying. Is there anything else? Um, I guess we run into Date, right? So we begin the investigation. We're in like boss's office, and Date's there. Um,
Oh, true. True.
and I forget if this was mentioned in the first episode, but y- Ryuki is kind of like Date's understudy. So they
Hmm.
obviously like have a good relationship. They are questioned, "Hey, Date, didn't you get your old body back? Like, why do you look like you did in the first game?" And that's explained. Oh, I'm wearing like this mask, and it's better with the ladies. So um, at least we have that. I don't know if any more comes of that. Um, but yeah, so we're playing as Ryuki, who's the upstart kind of uh, Wunder kid, investigating this murder, um, and we're led to these like secret organizations.
Right. By way of cryptic YouTube videos.
Yes,
uh, right. So it's like it's discovered that the video that the QR code shows is similar to, maybe inspired by, a video that appeared like 6 months earlier that was under a name, a handle called Bats 490,
yes,
and that people who like watched that video have disappeared. And so this is like a freaky thing that the kids are all talking about still. Um, and we realize somewhere along the line that one kid figured it out, and that's the son of the quiz show guy, Shoma,
and he has not
uh,
disappeared yet.
but hasn't disappeared. Right, like he, for whatever reason, is still hanging around, um, building robots. Like, uh, and so the like the location that it takes you to um, is one of these shadowy organizations, like a biological lab of some kind, where they're busy like trying to extend human life by using CRISPR technology to fiddle with DNA sequencing and all this and that. And it's like um the the dude who runs this place is called Shikara, which I believe is a word that means power in Japanese. Um, is he's a like an old man, again, kind of like a weird body shape, um, very large head, very slim body.
Yeah.
So maybe he's been already doing some some genetic engineering on himself.
Ah,
And
yes.
he's one of our somniums, right? So uh, he comes back to the headquarters, and his dream is like weirdly logical, I would say. um, it it's sort of modeled on the right brain and left brain thing. So there's that duality again. Um, yeah, he's got a machine that combines two halves of different like abilities from different people, um, and those are useful to allow you to explore different parts of this sort of mental laboratory he's got going on.
Yeah,
Um,
and there's statues that are just half of a
yes.
body, um, much like the
Right.
way that we found Jin. Is that his name? Like
Uh,
whoever the guy at the first
Forget.
is. Like right, so it's like half the
And
body. So
that's
obviously
right. Right.
it's very much like that. And as we're going through the Somnium, um, we get these messages, or Chikara is just kind of like constantly elated, and he's talking about
Yes.
prolonging life forever. Um, so it seems like he's seeking some sort of immortality, but he's
Hmm.
also like harboring some kind of secret there. Uh,
Yep.
and so we're going through trying to kind of like unlock that. And there's like this weird, I forget the term that they use in the game, but like a guy that's just like standing in front of this memory that you can't get
Yes.
by until there's some explanation in the game, like oh, it's like a subconscious lock that like protect. It's like an antibody in your dream world, I guess, that like
Hmm.
attacks anyone
Hmm.
who's trying to get this secret. Um,
Exactly.
but yeah, so you go around, and you're right. It was a very logical puzzle, right? You needed to jump high. Um, so you combined the abilities of like the Messiah warrior that was could jump really high, and an astronaut.
Right.
And then there's like a car that
Uh,
you have to drive around, and you combine the powers of someone who's like quick on their feet and can react.
mhm.
Um, and so, yeah, you're kind of doing these weird combinations until you get to the end. Um,
Right.
and then
Then
there's
you have
like,
to spell out. You use the NA function, the non applicable, and then the number 9 in Roman numerals is IX. And
yes,
this like spells out the word that he's trying to conceal, apparently, like some concept. And this is a thing from the first game, the original Somnium game. And it's some sort of secret organization. Um, there's that element of um, conspiracy that's like hinted at by the video having like a secret code programmed into it, that people could figure out, and I don't know, like there's all this stuff of that sort of is blending the real world and the game world in pretty interesting ways. Um, the idea of like augmented reality games being a kind of marketing technique, or psychological uh, you like imprinting stuff on people, propaganda, or whatever you want to call it. Like all of that seems very much uh, at play here in this sequel. Um, Now
yeah,
Chikara, he's not long for this world.
no,
He uh, he's no longer like a suspect, I guess. Um, Although he clearly has some more secrets. Um, but yeah, poor Chikara.
yeah,
He is our
yeah.
second corpse that we
Well,
find.
well, even, maybe not so poor Chikara as you play a little bit longer, but
Mm.
um, it's interesting because I've seen videos on these types of tests that organizations, and now it's very similar like this. No one actually knows what the organization is, but they will have
Mhm.
these kind of codes and videos or letters or stuff like that that people need to figure out.
Mm.
Um, so, I mean, I guess those videos could be lying. And none of them really have a conclusion, so it's kind of hard to be like, oh yeah, it was definitely the CIA who was like, put out these codes to recruit people who could, you know, uh, break all these other codes for them. Um,
Uh-huh.
but it is
Yeah,
a real world thing that at least I've heard about. Um,
totally. And the kinds of things that this game seems interested in um, are like they're spelled out for us to an extent because we go and we talk to the boss of this organization, Nikes. Um, she's very straightforward about her intentions, right?
mhm.
Like we're all in a simulation, and we are trying to find the seams, the ways that we can slip out of this simulation and get back to the real world or whatever that might look like. Um, but at the same time, the kinds of stuff that she's saying is so strange and like difficult to understand. Um, she's speaking in riddles really throughout that conversation. And she says that she's not responsible for these bodies showing up. Although I don't know, it
I,
seems like the kind of thing that is exactly what they're interested in, like these kind of weird, inexplicable glitches in the program.
so
Uh,
were they responsible for Bats 490?
that's right. They were the ones who put that one out there to try to recruit people, she says. But then she says this new one is not their doing. It's just imitating them, and maybe it's the percent sign organization that Chikara is part of this split off group that
Yes.
doesn't want to escape the simulation, wants to enjoy the simulation to the fullest with no consequences, and that's this like whole immortality thing. Um,
Yes, exactly. So again, going back to the Matrix, right? It's
hmm
kind of the same thing, especially with the first movie with Cypher being like, "No, I want to live in the simulation and just like have the time of my life,"
Yep.
versus the rest of the crew who is like trying to escape um, to reality. So
hmm hmm
um, definitely a lot of shades of that. But yeah, I think obviously the NAIX. Well, okay, let me take a step back. NA. Um, do we know
hmm
what that
hmm
actually stands for?
Isn't it not applicable?
So it's not applicable 9 on the NAIX? Or is that just
Right.
the name?
Right. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's the pun. That's the pun that's going on in Shikara's Somnium anyway. Um, and it again uses the mechanics of the game itself to like l- level this pun at you.
Right.
Um, yeah, yeah, and again, like the weird thing about these somniums is how they include the person whose dream it is. Like they're a playable character in their own dream in a weird way, right? Like Chikara is there, and he seems
Yes.
very aware of what's going on, and so goes Tokiko's dream too. She's there, and like there's different versions of her, like sort of teleporting around and seemingly trying to teach us something. I don't know because it's all about books and eyeballs and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and so her somnium, I forget if she came willingly or what prompted us to take her to the sync or machine to sync with her.
it's the wink sync. Remember, this is another new thing that's introduced where you like do a little hand gesture that like
Yeah.
shoots a magnetic beam at the person and
Yes.
and pauses their brain for a sec, and then you see like a miniature vision of them doing something in their dream. And so she's doing something that's like suspicious. She's talking to somebody who's a shadowy figure. I'm guessing it's Date. I don't know. No reason why, really, just because um, you know,
Why not?
seems like the sort of thing Date might do.
Also seems, yeah, it's like one of those twists that, yeah, it would definitely be within the,
Mhm.
or maybe not a twist per se, but definitely within the, oh, whoa, it was Dante the whole time. Um,
Yeah,
so, yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay, so we go, and her somnium is just weird.
it's
Um,
it's creepy. Yeah, it's disturbing.
we go around and we're looking at like skulls, and she talks, and it's the darkest skulls are the ones that you have to go to. So it's the ones that are in the shade. Um,
Mhm.
I forget what the hand ones are. Like, what's the
It's the
clue with
one
that?
I think that's the one that has the current, the water current
Okay.
that, like, leads you to them, and it has to do with love, I wanna say, like, where the current flows, that's where love grows or something like that,
Yeah.
and so she knows some of the people that we've been meeting. She knows the guy, Jen
Yes. Again.
with the weird, mask on all time. She knows the kid Shoma, and apparently cares a lot about both of them, wants to reduce their suffering in some way, but has also been, like, killing enough people to have a stream full of blood flowing through her brain office. So
Yeah.
it's a little creepy.
Yeah. And then the last one, you have, is that the one with the statues?
There's like eyeballs and books looking around.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, by turning the eyeballs to look at each other, it creates the final mental lock book thingy. Uh, yeah, this symbol that she makes with her hands represents the, the diamond shaped pattern of nine X's.
Yeah.
Um, right, and that's like on the wall behind her desk, and it like opens up at the end. And throughout, like it's been changing the perspective, right? It's like you go down one part of the pool and the other part of the waterfall, and you're swimming around underwater, and then the water all flows out, like out through the back of the wall, which is also downward somehow. Um, and then, but the end, the final part, you're like swimming upwards towards the nine X's, and they're huge and far away. And to me, this part of the game like pretty much forces you to play it through a couple times to have enough time for
Yes.
that last swim.
Yeah.
Unless you do like everything perfectly somehow. Yeah, I don't see how you could do that with enough time.
Yeah. No.
So it was a little frustrating, but interesting and cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you think it was intentionally frustrating? Do you think like it? I agree with you. Um, in that, like, I had to play it like twice or maybe even three times, before
Hmm.
I was able to complete it. Which I have not had that issue with any of the other ones.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there's an intent behind it, or if it's just poorly designed.
No, it seems like a difficulty spike that's, you know, again, sort of playing with the mechanics of the game in a weird way. Um, like it's a lot like the other games where you're using things that you know from playing the game to inform the player character, right? And
Yeah.
there's times here where she does that too. Like I think in your conversation with her, she asks you if you know like the mystery number, the nil number or something, and you can say that you know it, but then it'll prompt you to like enter the number. And of course, unless you've I guess figured out bats 490, you don't know the number. So I don't know. I didn't know the number, so she called my bluff there. Um,
I also bluffed. I was
yeah.
like, yeah, sure, I know it's nine. Um, yeah. So
Mm.
I so as we stand now, obviously we've gone through the couple somniums. We have these dueling weird, secret societies that believe similar, um, ideas.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I'm not exactly sure what else there was. Uh,
Well, the thing that this leaves you with, I mean, it gives us this word nirvana, right? Like allegedly, Tokiko is in a state of nirvana, according to her own dream, anyway, right? And
mhm,
that seems interesting on a couple levels. Like that is a state of escape, right? That's the thing she's trying to get to, supposedly, like escaping from this simulation world. Um, but on the other hand, again, her like vision of herself seems to entail like her helping other people to escape also, right? And so if that's the case, it seems as though these characters that we're meeting are all um, like in a way in which in the earlier game and in this one so far, we're like investigating murders and stuff. It seems like we're actually going to do we're going to end up doing something more along the lines of like um, the Persona games, right? Where you're like helping people by going into their dreams or whatever. Um, you're sort of like an agent of uh, mental liberation,
Mm.
is what it seems like here. Um, or again, that's sort of like how she's presenting herself, at least. So I find that pretty interesting. There's
You're right.
a s-
Chikara, everything that he seemed to be doing was for his own.
ego,
Yes.
totally.
So there was no kind of benevolent quality to it. While yes, um, Tokiko definitely seemed like her whole mission was to like make everyone aware of this.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and she's got a weird bodyguard. I think it's worth throwing that in there too. Like, everybody has got a partner or like an alter ego going on. Um, there's this bodyguard who apparently has another kind of backstory of his own. I guess we'll probably figure it out eventually why he's helping her. But um,
Yeah,
yeah,
and I guess even like going back to talk, we have the one dancer who kind of looks like Iris. I guess they all kind of look like
yeah,
Iris.
they all kind of look alike. Yeah, they all do.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so uh, I don't know if I have anything else to add. Um, I'm
Well, you're
enjoying.
much further in the game. It's tricky for you to say stuff without knowing if we've seen it yet so far.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the only reason. So after we complete the Somnium, what was like kind of the next thing that we were doing? If I recall correctly, we were supposed to meet um, Tokiko at like 10 o'clock at night.
Exactly. Yes. She says, I can't talk now for whatever reason. She's really busy all of a sudden, but come back and meet her that night and she'll tell you more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so I think
Dun,
that's kind of
dun.
everything that happened up until now.
Nice.
So do you have any
Yeah.
theories? Anything? I mean, I guess I'm not even sure if we
Mm.
know enough to have a theory.
Yeah, exactly. It's so to me, I will say it seems like people are surprised and like a little bit resistant to how Ryuki is like very driven to solve this case. It almost seems like people are telling you to just like chill and
Yeah.
you're just like not having it. Um, so that to me is a little interesting. That there seems to be like maybe a cover up of some kind going on here, which would be par for the course with Pewter and the boss and all them. They're sort of shadowy organization
Yes.
in their own right.
Yes, the fact that
Yeah, so there's
Pewter,
that.
that's another thing that's explained, right? Like, Pewter, we're like,
Mhm.
didn't you kind of like screw around in the last game? Like, how are you still working here? And
Yeah.
apparently, Boss has dirt on uh, officials in every branch of the government. So she was able to pull some strings to get her back or get him
Hmm.
back.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Again, like the less you know about the first game, the better. It seems like,
Yeah.
so you don't raise all these pesky questions. Yeah.
I forgot, did you play it? Did, did you do it so that you did know the answer to those questions at the very beginning?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No, I couldn't remember enough about the game. So I'm playing uh, as if I don't know the first game because I don't remember enough to get those questions right.
Yeah, fair enough. I it's also so hard to look up anything about this game because I'm trying to avoid spoilers. So
That's yeah,
that
yeah.
that's a
I
that's another issue with this. It's like part of me like I want to read up on some of this stuff, but it's like, oh, I know it's just going to tell me exactly like what happened, and it's everything's going to be spoiled for me. I made that mistake with Virtue's Last Reward. I'm not making that mistake again.
Yeah, definitely don't do that. Like, and I know it's tricky because you want to progress the game. You need to like figure stuff out to do that. And there's stuff that's like genuinely intriguing. You want to like read up on it, but yeah, there's danger there.
Yeah.
you you spoil parts of the twists and turns of the plot. So
Aside from
And
meeting Tokiko, is there anything else that was very pressing to investigate? I think it was to go talk to Gen, right?
that's what I would assume is gonna happen, that we'll go check with Shoma and Gen
Yeah.
because they both appear in the dream. They seem like they might be in danger. Um, I think, Date's whereabouts would be of interest as well, but again, we can't really figure that out, I guess. So yeah, that's where it stands.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll do this again next week. You and I.
I should be available. Yes,
Okay,
yes.
good. And we will figure out a good stopping point. I'll actually, after the, well, I guess that's just going to be it for this week. I'll stop the recording now.
Right on.
Uh, but I